Now look, you can call me many things, but lazy is not one of them. But this gray is, because it's called Lazy Gray. And it's a Sherwin Williams color that is pretty cool, both figuratively and literally speaking. And if you stick around for this video, you're gonna learn all about it, as well as an entire color palette that I made specifically for it. And whether or not you're a fan of modern feeling gray-based color palettes, I'm sure you're gonna find some value in today's video because I got some pretty cool information to go over. This was a recommendation from one of our esteemed channel members, so thank you for your contribution and your support. And if you want to generously support what we do on The Paint People, I would encourage you to become a member today, or even just like and subscribe so we can continue to make awesome painting and decorating content full-time on YouTube and beyond.
To infinity and beyond!
So first things first, let's talk about Lazy Gray as a color. Some of you may laugh and say that it isn't a color at all, James, because gray is in the name. You cheeky you.
Cheeky.
It's definitely a few things. First of all, it's a mid-tone neutral that is extremely muted, of course, and desaturated, although it isn't completely void of any color because it has a slight blue undertone to it. And this allows it to feel kind of serene and pretty chill, dude. It's also part of Sherwin-Williams' top 50 colors, so the company is recognizing it as being a pretty awesome choice, which could mean something to you, or it could also mean deadly squat. We can get a little technical here and look at some acronyms regarding Lazy Gray. First off, one of my favorites, the LRV, which is the light reflectance value. This tells us the percentage of light that any paint color reflects. And Lazy Gray has a 53 LRV, so really right in the middle paint color wise. Now, if we look at the RGB, that sort of tells us where it fits as a neutral. And of course, RGB stands for red, green, and blue, which is kind of a digital design color standard. And whenever those three numbers are pretty close to being equal with one another, that makes the color that it's representing feel more and more neutral, or I guess grayscale. And what's interesting here is Lazy Gray does have more blue in its RGB value more than anything else, which further exemplifies the fact that it has that cool undertone to it. Not even in practicality, but scientifically. There's also a chance that it could look even cooler or more blue in your home, especially in those north-facing rooms or anywhere that uses brighter, cooler light. Also, things like your flooring can play a huge role to how your color on the walls will look, just based on how color interacts with one another and how stuff can bounce off of different surfaces and trick your eyes with different undertones interacting in very strange ways. And the only real reason you can prepare for this sort of phenomenon is just testing out your colors before you commit to them. We always recommend it. Test your colors, please. Now with Lazy Gray specifically, I do think it's a pretty good choice for anyone that specifically likes to lean into neutrals on the cooler side of things. Maybe you're a little more, I don't know, transitional versus traditional, or perhaps you're a little more modern minimalist versus mid-century modern. This is a color that I would see used quite often, you know, maybe 5+ years ago, especially in the main areas of people's homes, because we all wanted to lean into that modern look, that new aesthetic. Gray, 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 metallics, whites. But I have noticed a huge departure away from cool to warm colors, not even just to neutrals, but just the whole color spectrum. And also, I do tend to find that lighter colors are going to be a little more popular, or at least more commonly used for those main areas of your home, like your hallways, your foyers, all that stuff. But when it's part of the fully fleshed out color palette, that's where I see Lazy Gray being used in very interesting and innovative ways when it's more of a secondary color. It's not holding up the entire color palette, it's supporting it. So here are some of the choices that I've picked out from the Sherwin-Williams catalog as color pairings to sort of build this palette together. The first one is another cool leaning color, but one that has a little more gentle and kind of buoyant feeling. It's called Opaline, and this color is technically part of the blue family, but I tend to get a very soft blue-green color that is essentially about 20 points lighter or 20% lighter than Lazy Gray. So already we have a color that is going to reflect more light back into your home, which is usually a good thing, and you're still within the cool side of things color-wise, but you do have a little bit of that warm green within it to connect the dots between the different color temperatures. So if you do have warmer beige colors or even golds, stuff like that, a greeny color like this can help ease that transition a little bit better. I could see it being a more suitable main color in the palette, and that's what I've intended here, just as a fun alternative to gray or beige. I guess it's kind of greenish. I mean, actually, it's a little more like a light minty sage kind of vibe, but I dig it regardless. The next color introduces warmth while also bringing in a decent amount of depth, and it's called Cargo Pants. Great name. Now, the through line between the last color and this one is a little bit of green. That's where those two have that sort of commonality, where Cargo Pants is a green undertoned tan color, and the other one was obviously that kind of light green blue. Pretty much no blue to speak of with this choice, and what's nice about it is it's nearly as dark as Lazy Gray, which means they can sort of act as alternates within your color palette. Kind of a choose this or choose that. But even though they're just about as dark as one another, their feel, their vibe is quite different, which just gives you more options. Lazy Gray feels a little more kind of like a sleek office kind of aesthetic. Cargo Pants is a bit more of a relaxing living room because of that warmth. But both are pretty neutral, all things considered, which means that adds to their versatility a little bit more than something very bright and punchy. The third color pairing is a very dark charcoal gray, which I love, and it's called Peppercorn. It really fits because it's not overly blue or green leaning as a dark gray. And if we're talking about RGB values again, Peppercorn has a perfectly even distribution across the three color spectrums, making it technically a perfect dark gray. This doesn't mean it's going to seem perfectly neutral in every home it's ever been in and ever going to be in, because again, your surroundings are going to really influence how it looks in person. But within the context of this palette, it's going to work well with the warmer tan color, the cooler gray, and that green blue in between. You can technically use it as a door color as well, so you don't have to think of it just in terms of walls. It could also work as a good trim color if you wanted to, because of how well it works with every other color. But my actual trim choices for your baseboards, your doors, and your frames are going to be these two. I have a light option and another dark option. Pure white is my preferred choice if you want lighter trim within this palette, and that's what I feel most people tend to favor. Because light trim is clean, it's a classic look. This color in particular has a very slight warmth, just enough to give it a bit of personality, but not so much that it's going to clash with those cooler colors especially. And then if you want an alternative to light trim, maybe something a bit darker, you could go with Gibraltar, which just like Lazy Gray, sort of feels like a darker gray at its core, but with a noticeable amount of blue mixed in as well. That kind of trim color will be leaning a little more into a nautical theme, I would say, but I'm all for it. Here's the palette all together. Let me know what you think. And Peppercorn we talked about earlier, right? Well, we talked about it a lot more in this video.